Welcome everyone to Science Society, and of course, a special welcome to you, Yi. And so people get to know you a little bit. Let me just say where you are right now. Dr. Yi Liu is a marine biogeochemistry, and she's at Irvine, California, in the United States, and she her education was at at UC Irvine, in Earth System Sciences, and your recent publication was so interesting that that I felt like it would be really important to invite you and to spread the word about your research. And before we start, how did you discover in your life that you wanted to become a scientist and go into research? Was it like a childhood dream or something that came later, maybe through a class or teacher or family member that kind of sparked your interest?
Oh yeah, so actually, when I was young, I like many other young children, I have a dream to become a scientist, even though I don't know what scientist is, but I thought it's very cool. And then when I started my undergrad research in China, undergrad study in China, and I majored in environmental science, and I did some undergrad research in the around something about spring bloom in the coastal region of China. And then I started to feel like I should be the person who can be a scientist because I feel myself keep asking why when I have some questions until I get some answer that I'm satisfied with. Also, I feel I enjoy doing research. Sometimes, I spend a few hours without realizing the time went by when I do the research. So I started to know that I should become a scientist in the future. And then I did my master's study in China in physical oceanography, and then I started to notice I want a broader audience of my research, and I kind of switch my interest into a larger scale climate topics such as the ocean carbon cycle. So I came to the US. I joined Dr. Keith Moore and Francois Primo's group in UC Irvine to do my PhD to focus on the ocean carbon cycle. This is more relevant to the climate change, which is a hot topic, and it's also very relevant to human well-being. I think that's kind of my motivation to be a scientist and also to start this project. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you always had this interest and childhood dream, and that you pursued it and you kept asking questions and being curious. It's also really nice to hear how you get so into the thought process and the work that you forget about time. It's a really great sign that you're doing what you're passionate about. So congratulations to finding your path, and for doing this really important research with a strong purpose. Um, it's really wonderful to hear. And was there, especially then for this research, was it really hard in the beginning, maybe, or was it like that the work came out like you expected it to come out, like that your theory basically got confirmed, or was it in the beginning really hard? Whatever the little bit of background story is it's really interesting. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, so actually at the beginning it's not coming to the specific research. It's like once I started my PhD, I kind of explore around, especially around what my advisor did. So in the first around 1 to 2 years, I spend lots of time knowing what I want to do and what the specific research project I'm interested. And then I spent around 1 year to develop a model. So that must be kind of like pretty hard for me. But then I got more used to, more interested, more passionate about what I'm doing, and the question becomes more clear. The tool becomes more much stronger. Then I feel like the things become much easier as I spend like first 2-3 years. So it naturally came out this for this. I mean, like this paper.
Well, thank you for giving us this insight, and it was really interesting pre-discussion, which lead us now to you presenting your work. So the presentation is pinned on top of the room for everyone. Feel free to access it, and yeah, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Give me a second. Okay. So I hope everyone can see my slides. Since there is no page no page numbers, so I would mention which slide I'm talking about. So my presentation is about the reduced CO2 uptake and growing nutrient sequestration from slowing overturning circulation. And this is a recent paper we have published in Nature Climate Change last year. I should say this year. It's formally published this year. And the topic is more related to, like, in a warming climate, like how does the global circulation change, and also how does this change could affect the ocean's ability, capacity to take up CO2 from atmosphere, and also like what's the impact of the circulation changes on the nutrient distribution in the ocean. So I picked this topic is because we are in a warming world. We are under climate change, but we are curious like how much carbon could be taken up by the ocean, so that we will know how much carbon will be left in the atmosphere. So this kind of one of the motivation, and also the other thing I am interested in the ocean nutrients is because the nutrients is a key factor that can control the phytoplankton growth, which the phytoplankton is the foundation of the marine ecosystem. So this is also an interesting topic. The carbon and the nutrients kind of like they are interacted with each other, and so they are all very interesting for me. And then I try to find out a way to combine them, to also like combine them with the changes of the ocean circulation. This has been ignored by many people. And if we move to the next page, the second page is the background of my research. And if you can see the top row shows the CO2 emissions into the atmosphere, like where the CO2 comes from, where the human-induced CO2 comes from. And if you focus on the bottom row, there is like where the CO2 left. So you see like actually you can see like the ocean can take up around like more than 25% of anthropogenic CO2 from atmosphere over the pre-industrial era. I mean, like from 1750 to maybe like 2012. So the ocean we can see like a strong carbon sink, and it takes lots of carbon from atmosphere. And also we are interested in the ocean carbon sink because sometimes we cannot clearly quantify the land carbon sink. So by knowing better about the ocean carbon sink, which can also provide us some like information about the land carbon sink. So this is one important way for us to know the Earth system feedbacks, and also like where the atmospheric carbon comes from, where the carbon goes. So that's our like a general motivation, the general background introduction about this research. And if we move to the next page, the page 3, you see there is a figure showing the atmospheric CO2, atmospheric carbon in the right top corner. And also there are some ocean processes which can modulate the ocean carbon sink in the bottom. So if you focus on the atmospheric carbon, then you can see like in terms of the natural carbon, I mean the carbon level at pre-industrial era, we can see like in the black line, the carbon remains in steady state. That means without human-induced carbon into the atmosphere, the atmospheric carbon is in steady state. This is we can assume that there is no climate change. However, people kept releasing carbon into the atmosphere, which can increase the atmospheric CO2 concentration. If you can see from the yellow line, this is an exponential increase of the CO2 in the atmosphere. So that lead to a increase in atmospheric CO2 in our present day. And we are curious like how much this carbon goes into the ocean and how the ocean processes can modulate this carbon sink. So if we see like in the ocean, focus on the ocean, we see the total carbon in the ocean includes both the natural carbon and the anthropogenic carbon. If you see the left side, we see the natural carbon can be modulated by the biological pump, which means the phytoplankton take up some nutrients, and also the phytoplankton take some nutrients, take this carbon for their growth, and then transfer this carbon into the deep ocean. And this carbon can stay in the ocean for a certain time. And this kind of like natural carbon or the carbon stored by the biological pump will also be affected by the global overturning circulation. And if you focus on the anthropogenic carbon in the right side, we see like there is no biological productivity. That means like the anthropogenic carbon can only be modulated by ocean circulation. And both the natural carbon and the anthropogenic carbon, they form the total shows how much carbon stored in the ocean. And so for this study, we are interested in specifically how the ocean circulation could affect the ocean carbon sink and also the carbon distribution in the ocean. And then next slide, I think should be the fourth slide. We show that in the figure in the left, we see there is an air CO2 flux from present day to the future, like to the year 2100, under multiple climate warming scenarios. So climate warming scenarios means like in the future, we assume there are multiple different climate pathways that we can achieve. So we don't know what's going to happen in the future, so we are interested in multiple climate warming scenarios. And we see that in different warming scenarios, there is like the ocean's ability to take up carbon is different. But even though in each specific scenario, that means the atmospheric CO2 keeps prescribed. Even though in this case, the different models can still simulate different ocean carbon sink, right? So this kind of tell us even though the atmospheric CO2 in each model is the same, but there are still large uncertainties, which the large uncertainties of ocean carbon sink, which we believe it can be driven by the ocean processes. So this actually directly motivate me to think how do the ocean circulation changes could affect the ocean carbon sink in these climate models under climate change. So let's move to our results. So the first result is the slowdown of global overturning circulation. So to make sure you are on the same page with me, I will first talk a little bit about what is the Meridional Overturning Circulation. If you see, I think now it's page 5, and if you see the right bottom corner, there is a, a figure shows what is the overturning circulation is. You see there is 2 overturning cells. One is in the upper cell, we call it AMOC, which is Atlantic Meridian Overturning Circulation. This is more stays in the Atlantic, but there is also another overturning cell, which is a basal cell of overturning circulation, coming from the Antarctic coastal regions. We call it SMOC, Southern Ocean Meridian Overturning Circulation. So this is the 2 cells, the 2 overturning cells in the ocean kind of can modulate the transport of the carbon and also the nutrient in the ocean. So first, if you move to the left part of this page, we show the changes of the global overturning circulation under climate change. The x-axis of all these figures coming from 1850 to the year 2300. And we see there are multiple warming scenarios from the most moderate warming scenario. That means the atmospheric CO2 can reach the peak at around 2060. This is SSP1 2.6. And also the moderate warming scenario, SSP2 4.5, which kind of seems the atmospheric CO2 will reach the peak, will be the maximum at around 2100. And also you'll see there is a scenario called SSP5 8.5, which is the strongest warming scenario. That suppose people do not do anything to mitigate climate change, and the atmospheric CO2 still keep rising exponentially, even though at the year of 2100. So for this study, we focus on these 3 warming scenarios. And first thing we are interested, we are making some figures about under each warming scenario, what is the changes of AMOC and SMOC. So we can see that from all these figures, we can see that the overturning circulation slows down both in the upper and the abyssal cell, no matter which warming scenario we are talking about. However, the strength of the slowdown will depend on the scenarios. The overturning circulation will slow more under high-end warming scenario, but it will slow less under moderate warming scenarios. But if we extend our study to the year 2300, and if we focus on the SSP 8.5, there are only about 5 swirl-drop AMOC left in these scenarios. But if we see like at the bottom of the figure, the SMOC, which is the basal overturning circulation, will fully shut down by the end of by the year 2300. So this figure in general talks about the changes of global overturning circulation under each warming scenarios. So if we move to the next page, which is page 6, we are interested in how these changes of the overturning circulation could affect the ocean carbon sink, or the ocean's capacity to take up carbon from atmosphere. And we see there are 2 pathways that the circulation slowdown could affect the ocean carbon sink. So the first pathway is affecting the carbon sink by affecting the carbon stored by the biological pump. As you can see, I marked as 1 the first pathway in the slide. And this is also by 2 separate processes. One is the changing of overturning circulation. The slowdown of circulation could affect the biological productivity or the export production. This can affect the carbon stored by the biological pump. And the other way is the overturning circulation slowdown could also changes the time that carbon can stay in the ocean. I call it sequestration time. This could also affect the carbon stored by the biological pump. So the thing here is like if the carbon can stay in the ocean for a longer time, that means the biological pump could help the ocean to store more carbon because this carbon cannot be released back into the atmosphere. And there is also the second pathway that the circulation changes could affect the carbon sink. The second way is called the solubility pump. The solubility pump is not directly related to the biological productivity, and it is more related to the ocean's ability to take up anthropogenic carbon from the ocean, from the atmosphere. So for this study, we separately trying to research how the circulation changes could affect the carbon stored by the biological pump and the carbon stored by the solubility pump, and what is the net effect of overturning circulation slowdown on the ocean carbon sink. So let's move to the next page, the page 7. I hope this figure will not make you feel boring, but I try to make it easier to understand. So so if you focus on the panel A and panel B, here we show the changes of SMOC and AMOC, that means the overturning circulation in each CMIP6 models, in each climate model. So the y-axis here shows each climate model. Each climate model, we have 13 models total, and here then we show like the changes of overturning circulation in each model and also under each climate scenarios. So this is the results is consistent with what we found before. Like in each model, we can see that under the high-end climate scenario, we have more slowdown of global overturning circulation, much than the moderate warming scenarios. And then if you focus on panel C, this is the delta x-axis is the delta EP, which means the the changes of biological export production. This shows the strength, the strength of the biological pump. And we see that almost all the models under all the warming scenarios show a decline of the export productivity. And also still like under strong warming scenarios, the decrease of export production is much stronger than under moderate warming scenarios. So then we are interested like how much extra carbon could be stored in the ocean under the changes of the overturning circulation and also under the increasing atmospheric CO2. Then like if you move to the panel E, F, G, H, like the bottom 4 panels, 4 figures, we see that we separately study the ocean by the intermediate depths, which is like 100 to 2,000 meter, and also the deep ocean, which is like more than 2,000 meter. And we see the left E and G showing the preformed carbon accumulation, which means the carbon stored by the solubility pump. And the panel F and H in the right shows the accumulation of regenerated carbon, which means the carbon stored by the biological pump. And we see from this figure, we see that almost all the models have increasing preformed and regenerated carbon. That means the ocean is taking up CO2 from the atmosphere by both the solubility pump and the biological pump. But if we focus specifically talk about the intermediate depths and the deep ocean, we notice that the preformed carbon, which means the carbon stored by the solubility pump, will accumulate more in the intermediate depths. However, the carbon stored by the biological pump will accumulate more in the deep ocean. And then if we go to the next page, which is page 8, I focus on some analysis about how the changing overturning circulation could separately affect the carbon stored by the biological pump and the solubility pump. So if you focus on the panel A to panel C, this is under 3 warming scenarios. The relationship between the changes of export production over the changes of SMOC with the accumulation of regenerated carbon, of the carbon stored by the biological pump in each CMIP6 models. If you see there is some random numbers in the figure, that means the specific climate model we are using in this paper. If you are interested, you can reach out. You can look into the paper for more details about this model. So let's back to the carbon stuff. We see that from panel A to panel C, they are all negative correlation. So this negative correlation indicates that the relative change of export production at SMOC will show the negative correlation with the accumulation of the carbon stored by the biological pump. Especially, we see like if we have decreased export production, if one model can simulate more decreased export production, that means the storage of the carbon by biological pump will also go down. This is as expected. And this other thing I want to mention is if we have more slowdown of the overturning circulation, then at least in terms of the carbon stored by the biological pump, there could the ocean can allow this carbon to stay in the ocean for a longer time, so that the slowing overturning circulation can allow the ocean to, the biological pump to store more carbon. And if let's move on to the panel D, E, and F. This part shows how the changes of overturning circulation, especially the SMOC changes, affect the accumulation of the preformed carbon, which is the carbon stored by the solubility pump. We see there is a positive correlation. That means the more slowdown of SMOC will lead to less accumulation of preformed carbon. This is also as expected, because once we have more circulation slowdown, we anticipate that this the actual carbon, the anthropogenic carbon that the ocean takes from atmosphere will just stay in the ocean surface and does not have enough chance to move into the deep ocean. This is our guess, but we're trying to validate this assumption in the future. And the last row, which is the panel G, H, and I, shows the changes of SMOC with the changes of the total carbon. We see the net effect is the slowdown of SMOC. The slowdown of SMOC will reduces the ocean carbon sink. And this is our key results of this paper. But also, I would like to focus more on the carbon stored by the biological pump. So we base on one specific climate model, and we develop an offline model which further allows us to separately know the role of biological processes and the overturning circulation into the total ocean carbon, into the carbon stored by the biological pump. So if we move to the next page, page 9, we see in the figure 4 of our paper, the left panels here, the left column here shows the total carbon storage in the ocean, accumulation rate in the ocean, and the regenerated carbon and the preformed carbon. We see from this figure, like all the ocean depths is trying to take more carbon from atmosphere, but also we can see that more of the carbon stored by the biological pump, the regenerated carbon is gradually moving into the deep ocean. if you see like in the middle row. But for the preformed carbon by solubility pump, it's more just stayed in the intermediate depths. So that means this is consistent with what we found from all the other CMIP6 climate models. The most interesting thing is in the right two columns. Here we show the changes, we show the accumulation of the nutrients in the ocean. And in general, we see the nutrients both for the phosphorus and for the nitrogen. They accumulate more in the deep ocean. But they are less at the intermediate depths. That means the nutrients will be trapped in the deep ocean because of the slowdown of overturning circulation. What's the consequences of this? So the thing is, if you remember, there is a decrease of the biological productivity. This is kind of like due to the nutrient trapping in the deep ocean, because the overturn circulation will not allow much nutrients releasing back into the surface, which will allow the phytoplankton to grow. So the thing is, the nutrient will be trapped in the deep ocean and the surface will be nutrient depleted. This will decrease the biological productivity in the ocean. So that's the goal of why we are also interested in the nutrient in this paper. And finally, let's move to the page 10, which is our last key figure of in this paper. This schematic showing how the overturning circulation affect the biological processes and the physical processes to finally affect the carbon stored by biological pump. If we focus on the left panel, there is a carbon stored by the biological pump in steady state. I mean pre-industrial era. We see that the biological carbon export and the ocean the circulations the carbon's removal by the circulation is balanced with each other, leaving the net carbon accumulation rate to 0. That means the ocean is in steady state and the biological processes and the physical processes, they are balancing with each other. But as time goes by, if we focus on the 21st century, which is the year 2000s, we see that the yellow part, we see the biological processes goes down compared to the pre-industrial level. However, this contribute negatively to the carbon stored by the biological pump. However, the circulation removal, the circulation also goes down. So the carbon removal by the circulation also goes down. We see the removal also goes down compared to the pre-industrial. But if we combine these two processes together, we have a positive net carbon accumulation in the ocean. We see the net number here for the it's a positive number. That means the ocean, the biological pump trying to store more carbon in the ocean under the slowing overturning circulation. And this tendency also exists after in the 23rd century, after the year 2200. We still see the biological pump trying to store extra carbon in the ocean due to the global overturning circulation. But this is only specifically for the pathways in the biological pump. But for the solubility pump, we still have lots of unknowns, which needs further studies. And if we move on to the last page, the last page is a short summary and conclusion of this paper. We see that first, the overturn circulation will slow down, but the strength of the slowdown will depend on the scenarios. The overturn circulation will slow more under high-end scenarios and less under moderate warming scenarios. And the second thing is the slowdown of global overturn circulation will actually will increase the capacity of the biological pump to store extra carbon in the ocean. This is due to the overturning circulation will allow the carbon to stay in the ocean for a longer time to increase the sequestration time of the carbon stay in the ocean, so that this could have like more carbon accumulation in the ocean by the biological pump. However, the slowdown for overturning circulation will reduce the capacity of the solubility pump to take up extra anthropogenic carbon from atmosphere. And if we think both of the two pathways, the decrease of the solubility pump overcompete the increasing accumulation of the carbon by the biological pump, leaving the reduction of the ocean carbon sink. So the key conclusion here is the slowdown of overturning circulation will finally reduce the ocean carbon sink at least to the year 2100 under each climate warming scenarios. So this study kind of provide a new positive feedback, which links the ocean and the changes of ocean circulation to the strength of the ocean carbon sink. And yeah, I think that's the main point of my paper, and I'm very happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sorry, I was bringing Akil up for this wonderful presentation and the work that you're doing. It's really so important and really interesting. So thank you for sharing this here with us. And I wanted to give Eli and Akil the chance to ask questions first. Please go ahead.
All right, great presentation and really great work. So a few questions. Did you or are you aware that the model results that you were using take into account the decreasing carbon dioxide solubility with decreasing pH with acidification?
Yeah. That's a good question. But so the decreasing pH actually contributes a lot to the carbon sink, and this is implicitly included in the climate models. I mean, like the decreasing pH will automatically affect the ocean surface ability to take up carbon from atmosphere due to some chemical processes. And this decreasing pH also highly depends on how much carbon the ocean already takes from the atmosphere. Yeah, you are right. So decreasing pH is also a key factor that could affect the ocean's ability to take carbon from atmosphere, but it is but for this study we focus more on the circulation side.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, one thing that is kind of concerning is whether there's an additional feedback due to the reduced biological pump, which means that the inorganic carbon is what contributes to the reduction in pH, right? So if there is less of the biological pump and more of the solubility pump, then the partition of where the carbon dioxide is, or the carbon is going, and how much of that contributes to increasing acidification, right? That shifts, and I mean, I'm sure that's difficult to tease out, but I think it might be important.
Yeah, I agree with you. So if your point is the acidification on the biological pump, especially on the biological productivity, I agree with you. It's hard to tease out from our climate models. And also, I'm not quite sure if all the models have considered the impact of ocean acidification on biological processes. I'm not sure how much they consider in the model, but this contribute to, but yeah, I agree with you, but this contribute to the biological pump, especially by the biological processes, biological side. And yeah, and for the role, but the thing is like it's kind of like the role of overturning circulation will outcompete the decrease of the biological productivity, especially on the carbon stored by the biological pump. But yeah, what you mentioned is an important point in the models, but it's hard to tease out.
And similarly, do you have a feel for how well the response in net primary productivity will depend on the changes in nutrient distribution? I think that that's kind of nebulous, but I think it's important to understand, you know, if it's not poorly known, that things could potentially be worse than what you're already showing.
Yeah, that's also a great question. So the net primary production. So also I need to clarify first. What I showed here is the export production, which means the carbon sinking at the depth around 100 meter. It's kind of like biologically it's different, like it's different from the net primary production. But in terms of the net primary production, there is no much agreement on the sign of the changes. Cause the net primary production, one thing is definitely it's affected by the nutrient level. Cause the surface nutrient will definitely goes down. This is pretty clear in our study due to the overturning circulation. But also, if we focus on the net primary production, the nutrient just one of the key factor. Also, like the phytoplankton itself can also have some mechanisms that could allow them to adapt to the low nutrient levels. So this can kind of like compensate some of the negative effects by the nutrient levels in the ocean. So that kind of like some studies argue that the net primary production will not go down. But in terms of the export production, which I focus more in this paper, the export production have a higher chance to go down because it depends on some other biological processes, but that is more certain across all the semi-climate models. I hope this answers your question.
Yes, I think it does. I'm going to have to dig into that a little bit more, and I look forward to going and reading your paper in greater depth. But thank you very much, and obviously keep up this work. It's really important.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Akil, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, sure. If there's time.
Yes, of course. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Okay. So yeah, Dr. Liu, thank you so much for your presentation. It was really thought-provoking. So I have one general question. So given the complex interactions between the physical, chemical, and biological processes in the ocean, how do you think the incorporation of more advanced understanding of these interactions, such as microbial feedbacks and the influence of mesoscale and sub-mesoscale processes could affect our estimates of ocean carbon sink dynamics?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So the microbial processes, actually, I have to admit that in my study, I didn't focus on the microbial or the mesoscale and sub-mesoscale processes for a few reasons. The microbial processes is very important, but it's not fully understood, especially fully incorporated in the climate models. Most climate models kind of like simplified some microbial or even other biological processes. So it's very important, but currently, I mean, the state-of-the-art Earth system models does not have many, as far as I know, they do not have much microbial processes considered in their models. Maybe because of the expensive computational cost, or kind of because of the microbial processes are not very well understood. And in terms of the mesoscale and sub-mesoscale processes, this is very important in the carbon export, or I mean like the carbon transport, because it directly related to the ocean circulation. And again, these two processes are pretty like smaller scale processes, and the Earth system model have the prime tradition scheme for the mesoscale processes, but most of the model just ignore the sub-mesoscale processes. This kind of one of the possible reasons that why the Earth system models cannot simulate the overturn circulation very well. But there must be also other processes. But in terms of my study focusing on the state-of-the-art climate models, these processes are important but not are fully considered or incorporated in their models.
Okay. Do you believe that like integrating like AI-driven approaches could potentially like revolutionize the way we approach ocean and climate research? You know, ultimately leading to more accurate predictions and effective mitigation strategies.
Yeah, definitely. I have a strong belief that the AI can help a lot understanding both the current climate processes and also, I mean, like the future predictions. Yeah, especially sometimes the AI can save lots of time and energy to do the traditional, I mean, process-based models. Yeah, I believe that.
Great, great. So yeah, thank you so much for for answering questions. I just have one suggestion though, like it, if you can explore, the potential for collaboration with, other researchers focusing on the role of marine ecosystems, especially those studying the response of key species, to changes in nutrient availability and carbon sequestration. I think that would be very, very helpful, especially bridging the gap between the ocean biogeochemistry and marine ecology, which was kind of my first question, I believe. But yeah, other than that, your research is really, really amazing. I wish you all the very best.
Thank you.
Yeah, I see that Lubna, John, and Frank joined the stage. Please go ahead in PTR order.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for the nice talk. Very interesting. And I join also the Eli and Akil for their questions. Actually, my last project was related to cyanobacteria, which actually, it's phytoplankton, as this is the most important organism for, I would say, who synthesize oxygen in the world and on our planet, and also is the absorbent of CO2. So basically, it's the only bacteria which is making the photosynthesis. And my project actually was more focused on stress conditions on these bacteria and the whole genome and transcriptomics react, and of course proteomics and this aspect. So I'm quite also surprised somehow how these stress conditions were not taken in consideration in case of your model, for example, pH, how the bacteria react in different conditions of pH. It's amazing how the whole transcriptomic change, or for example, iron or nitrogen or heat shock, and many conditions which should be taken indeed in consideration, because This is cyanobacteria is one of the important organism, I would say, which absorb carbon and also which produce oxygen in this way. This is one. I think you already answered somehow or partially that. Then yeah, we'd be grateful. You can add some aspect. And another thing, Achil, about AI. AI is widely used in biology and climate and so on. So this is nothing surprising. We were using that since already more than 20 years ago, and I think this is because I'm new in this area of bioinformatics, which I actually started around 10 years ago. But I believe people started more than 20 years ago, and this is basically how we do predict. For example, if you know proteomics, if you know, for example, proteins, how they are folded, there is one AlphaFold. This is just one example, AlphaFold software, which is based in AI to predict how the proteins actually they are folded, or many software which are using AI, for example, to catch SNPs, or yeah. So, or for example, when you do transcriptomics, we want to classify, or you want to cluster. So it's all everything which is based on machine learning and as I said, yeah, on AI. And thanks a lot for the nice talk.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I agree. What you said, and but in terms of your first concern, yeah, we didn't consider much stress in the climate models. Also in our study, I feel this is kind of, yeah, I agree with you. There are lots of important processes we are not include. Yeah, I think that's kind of like, if we it depends on the study, that like if we focus on one specific model, there are some studies both clearly including this kind of cellular or like processes, biological stress, and then study some like more mechanistic understanding thing. But in terms of the climate models, I mean, all these important processes are hard to incorporate into the climate models, especially for some, because of the computational cost or the cost by the development. So I think it depends on, it's important, it's very important processes, and it's very important to incorporate, but it's hard to incorporate it in the state-of-art climate models. Yeah, but I agree with your point.
Okay, thanks again.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the wonderful talk. Although I joined this your talk a little bit late, so I'm actually not sure. So you just use the model to calculate to find out the results that slowing ocean flow would decrease the CO2 absorption. Did you actually perform any kind of experiment to confirm your results, or is it possible to do some experiment to directly actually measure these things?
That's a good question. So actually, for my study, because I focus on the future ocean carbon sink, that means I most focus on like how much extra carbon could be taken up by the ocean in the future, and how much how much the different storage of this carbon by different models could be driven by the different slowdown for overturning circulation in different models. Because we focus on the future world, it's not possible, like in terms of my study, it's not possible to do the experiments or the observational thing for the future. But currently, we do have lots of lots of observations of ocean circulation, but like doing the observational study is pretty expensive, and so the observational data set is sparse, and the only thing we can from current observational data set is the circulation is really slowing down in the recent decades. But how this can relate to the strength of the ocean carbon sink is hard to distinguish from all the other processes, and especially in terms of the sparse observations. So it's a good topic, but it's kind of hard to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, because there are so many factors that affect the CO2 absorption by the ocean water. And see, just I post on see the message. It just see temperature, atmosphere pressure, CO2 pressure, and see you have plants, micro and animals. And another thing is with the temperature, global warming effect, and then so there will be lots of those ice, melt and then release into the water. So those might also increase the volume of the water which absorb carbon dioxide. So there are so many factors. I just don't know how theoretically people can put all those factors inside to make a model. And I think probably the best way is just actually to measure it, to compare this year to 2023 to 2024 or 2022, or it just, I don't know. Yeah, that's how I look at the things.
Yeah. That's a good point, but yeah, again, it's hard to make all the observations, and also, so the goal of the model is we can separate the processes. We can separate the different mechanisms, such as, like you mentioned, the role of the temperature, the role of the circulation, or some biological processes. In the model, it's kind of relatively easy to separate the role of each processes, and we can quantify the role, quantify the contribution from each process, even though there are still strong interactions between different processes. However, if in the observational world, if we do some like observational thing, it's hard to separate the role of each processes, such as you can observe, you can see there is a slowdown overturning circulation in the past 20 years. That's you'll observe there is a slowdown of the velocity, the decreased velocity, but also at the same time you can still see there is an increase in temperature, there is a decrease in pH, there are lots of other things, but they just coupled with each other, and you cannot distinguish which process finally affect the ocean carbon sink. So there are lots of unknowns and interesting topics, but we are still do not know very much.
I'd like to just make one additional comment. So of course measurements would be best, but in terms of glacial melt or ice cap melt contributing more volume to take up more carbon dioxide, at least most of that started as snow, which presumably equilibrated with the atmosphere and took up carbon dioxide in the first place. And unless it melted and there was biological activity to fix that carbon, it probably was already acidified. So you're not going to get any changes in the right direction, most likely, based on those assumptions.
Any
Thank you.
Any other questions or?
I think Frank and Did John get the chance to ask a question? Do you still have time? That's the first thing I wanted to ask. If you don't
Maybe,
have time.
yeah, maybe I can take the last question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, thanks so much for covering this very important topic. I'm now a little bit confused. Did you kind of, Eli, did you cover the...
Your mic just cut out.
Oh, my mic?
No,
Oh, am
Frank's.
I okay? Am I okay?
Now you are.
Okay, I just asked whether you have covered this question of the Sweetwater, of the influence of the Sweetwater already, because we have, what is it, 1.4 billion cubic kilometers of salt water, and then we have, what is it, 35 million cubic kilometer of Sweetwater, of which 10 million what is it? No, million cubic kilometers are liquid, and 24 are kind of frozen. So I'm kind of interested into this the effect on the transatlantic circulation in particular. And so, what do you think is this? And maybe Eli has asked the question, and I was stepped away when you asked answered it.
I was commenting on John's speculation that meltwater from glaciers or the ice caps would create a significant additional capacity for carbon uptake, and I kind of think that just won't help for the reason because that started out as snow that was already equilibrated with the atmosphere.
Well, I'm kind of, and I'm putting the numbers again, right? So I'm kind of interested in the particular influence on the transatlantic circulation, because it, or if at all, sweet water would have an effect if it melts into it. The numbers are kind of sweet water is really just a low amount, right? And the places where it's frozen are kind of Antarctica and Greenland in particular. But yeah, I'm interested into this question because I get asked this question quite a lot. So what is the influence of sweet water to that, without putting any suggestion into that?
I hope I understand your question correctly. So you are interested in what is the consequences of having this melted this like fresh water into the ocean, right? If this is your
Yes.
question, yeah. So yeah, that's a very interesting question, and I think there is, so in terms of the ocean overturning circulation side, there is a recent Nature paper. I think it just got published yesterday or 2 days ago. It talks about they use a model to study the role of meltwater input into the ocean on the SMOC, the overturning circulation. And the conclusion of their paper is like the meltwater input into the ocean will finally it will slow down the global overturning circulation compared with the models without the meltwater inputs. But in terms of the ocean biogeochemistry or the ocean carbon sink, I'm not quite sure because I haven't done this kind of experiments or these studies. But my expectation is the actual meltwater input into the ocean will affect the ocean, will make the ocean become more stratified, and also this and yeah, and this will further affect the ocean's nutrient availability and affecting the ocean's biological pump and further also the solubility pump. But I don't specifically know the answer, the impact to the ocean carbon sink. But because currently the model do not really have these processes.
So if I get your answer correct, there will be kind of twofold reactions. So first of all, it will slow down due to the meltwater, and then in kind of a long term side effect, which I would expect to be rather small, because the whole Sweetwater thing is it is just a tiny amount of the whole water reservoir. So, but in the secondary effect, it would be in the long run, kind of, because it doesn't have the carbon dioxide in it, it would kind of make up for some of the density that is already there of carbon.
Yeah, I think your point is great, but so the first, like you just mentioned, yeah, so it will further slow down the overturning circulation. So from this side, I believe it will reduce the ocean's capacity to take up carbon from atmosphere. If if my conclusion is robust, that the slowdown of overturning circulation will reduce the capacity of the ocean to take up carbon. But in terms of, like you mentioned, it is a small fraction of water without carbon, like going into the ocean. I don't think this. I'm not sure, but I think, yeah, I think this part will not affect much into the ocean carbon sink, because as you said, it's just like a small fraction. I think most of the signal might come from its impact on the overturning circulation. That's my point.
Okay, last question. Do you think there's a difference between the melting ice water coming from Antarctica and the melting water coming down from Greenland into the transatlantic circulation? Do you think there are any differences because of the location that those ice sheets have?
Um, it depends. I'm not very sure about the meltwater, but I think it depends on the location where the water. So in general, in terms of the strength of the overturn circulation, I think the effect should be the same. That's my expectation. Like they both slow down Southern Ocean overturn circulation and the AMOC. But specifically, if we are focusing on some local effect, I'm not quite sure if the effect is similar or there's something update that's haven't been explored before.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you so much for you coming here Yi, and sharing your really important research with us. This was really amazing talk and discussion. We really appreciate it, and thank you everyone for coming and asking questions. I hope you enjoyed it. Oh, Eli,
Actually,
did you want to
yeah,
say?
just one final thing. So it's kind of your very last statement in the slides that the slowdown of the SMOC reduces the ocean carbon sink. Yeah, so you explained that really well, but they explains 1/3 of the spread across the CMIP6 models. I'm kind of wondering whether that's because they don't factor any of this stuff in explicitly, and there's plenty of variation there. Did you just mean that the magnitude is 1/3 of the variation in the CMIC models? Because I don't think that you can rely on the CMIC models to explain to capture much of this at all.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think I should have explained it clearly. And so the point here is, like, agree, we should not fully rely on the CBM6 models, but if we going into the far future, and if you're going back to which slide? The slide including some correlation analysis, we see that the R square, is all around like 1/3, especially I mean focusing on the changes of SMOC to the changes to the side of the ocean carbon sink. So I say it explains about 1/3 of the model spread. That means the overturning circulation slowdown can explain around 1/3 of the variance across different climate models in terms of the ocean carbon sink. That's my point.
Well, okay, so okay. I mean, maybe this is kind of like or this is a wording issue, because the models themselves don't explicitly treat any of this, correct?
Explicitly treat what? Sorry, I don't get your point.
The interaction of ocean circulation and biological production or the solubility pump.
I mean, like, this is not so the thing is, like, the biological pump is defined by the, I mean, like here I mentioned biological pump means the carbon stored by the biological pump. It's defined by, yeah, like I just mentioned, it's not explicitly related in the model, but the thing is, like, the circulation will directly affect the nutrients in the ocean, and then the export production, and also the circulation will automatically affect the carbon storage in the ocean, right? Because it depends, like, how long the carbon can store in the ocean before releasing back to the atmosphere, and also how long the ocean need to taking from the carbon in the surface from the surface to the deep ocean. This is not this I don't know how to define explicitly included in the model, but the circulation naturally affect the nutrient and the carbon transport in the ocean. I think that's a pretty strong relationship.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I guess a better way for me to say it is that this explains a variation. Your results explain a variation, or explain an effect that is a magnitude of a third of the variation in
Yeah.
the models.
Mm-hmm.
But I going further would kind of suggest that it's incorporated in the models, and you're just kind of like, explaining why the models are representing that, when in fact no, it's the models are representing that for different reasons based on their own inputs and algorithms.
Yeah, I agree with you, but there are something like our model doing the same thing, like the circulation. Maybe the circulation is different in the model, but our model agree that the circulation can transport the carbon, the nutrient in the ocean. I mean, like, some basic law in the model are kind of like the same. And yeah, there are also lots of different processes in the model, and these processes are I mean, like, are combined or interacted with each other, but we kind of like simply by doing this correlation can kind of like give us some inspiration, like the circulation changes could explain around like 1/3 of the correlation, 1/3 of the variance. But yeah, there are also other processes included, so maybe that's kind of the reason why the other 2/3 are not being well explained.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a very interesting topic. Maybe you can talk about it
And
later.
if you, I think I mentioned this too in the past, the preprint by Jim Hansen and a bunch of other people, including Leon Simmons, who's sometimes on Clubhouse, from December. Have you seen that?
Not really. Sorry.
Okay, I'll send you the link to that. It's not
Yeah.
directly related, but they are also working on something relating to, at least Jim Hansen is working on something related to ocean circulation, which should be coming out sometime in the coming months.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Great. So again, thank you so much for coming and for all the interesting questions, which sparked a really great discussion. I wish you all the best for your research, and yeah, we will be following it for sure, because as we said, it's really important and interesting. And yeah, we wish you all the best for the future, and maybe we hear you again one day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. It was a pleasure.
Thanks. See you all soon.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone, our next room will be about cellular mechanism that was detected that protects against stress. It's kind of, I think, new progress made in the field of preventing things from happening. It wasn't really possible before because first you have to learn kind of what happens in a regular state, and then you can start stressing out cells and different cell types, and then figuring out what the mechanisms kick in and how to prevent it. So I think it's a really wonderful new direction of our research field, and I think it will be an interesting thing to learn. So I hope to hear you all, and enjoy the rest of your day or evening or morning, wherever you are. Thank you.
Thanks, Katerina.
Okay, I close the room in 3, 2, 1. Bye, everyone. Thank you.